That's not part of your video.
No, now it's recording. What's up, guys? So, recently, with all the interesting things that have been going on with the executive branch of the United States, aka the Obama administration, and my concerns with Lilith and Libra, and this involved with this T-square with Uranus and Aries, and then obviously Pluto and Capricorn. Pluto and Capricorn was the Pluto placement that was in the chart for the actual founding of this country. And Uranus and Aries, as I've said before in other videos, I've attributed that to either the Jihad Holy War and or Muslim invasions or wars. And so with Lilith being in Libra, that has to do with abusing law, manipulating powers, being a corrupt judge or justice, that sort of thing, or a corrupt monarch that is abusing their rights and abusing the people. So, that being said, I have discussed with some of my friends recently that are now starting to feel all this tension and negativity coming up that I've been trying to, explain to people, that they're now starting to listen to me. And obviously I've always been into Nostradamus. I've been trying to decode a lot of his quatrains, specifically the ones that have a lot of astrological symbolism. Since him and I have a complementary chart composite, I kind of have a similar thought process to him. So it's easier for me to translate some things, especially the things that are associated with astrological allegories. And then on top of that, I am comparing his quatrains that I am kind of guessing might be relevant within this next major transition time through the rest of Pluto being in Capricorn. And I've looked at Baba Vanga, the Bulgarian lady, that she has validated some of the quatrains that Nostradamus had predicted 500 years ago. And she, obviously being a little bit more in the modern era, was able to explain it in more detail and relevant vocabulary that we would be able to translate and understand a little bit better. She's that one psychic or mystic lady that said that there would be two steel birds that would hit and make the two brothers fall in the new city. So that was essentially 9/11. And that would be the start of the Great Muslim War, and that there will be the first African American president of the United States will be the last president of that country. So obviously there's been a lot of scares with people just wondering what's going on with the way Obama's abusing executive orders, with all the secrecy going on, with the economic collapse on a global scale now, with some foreign countries abandoning the dollar, having all this animosity towards the Muslim countries going on. And I don't know what Obama's trying to do with beef with Russia. I mean, it's not like we don't have enough enemies or whatever, but it just seems like it could be potentially anything. So I went ahead and did a transit progression for the United States chart. So I'm actually just going to read it off. It's 6 pages, but I'm just going to skim through some of it. I was reading it and I found it very interesting, and it had some very keen details and insight that could give us an idea of how things are going to play out. It's already pretty evident from looking from an Ephemeris and looking at other historical events that happened previously during similar planet transit aspects, and the way that things are happening in Europe right now. It's obviously the way that Nostradamus also said that the third Antichrist will bring on World War III. And I remember Baba Vanga said something too similar to the World War III thing that would be associated with the Muslim War. And Nostradamus said that there would be a third Antichrist and that he would be the worst he would be the worst he would be worse than the first two. And essentially he would do the same damage and have the same kind of agenda, but spread it worldwide. So it would be a global thing. So the Holy War Jihad thing, the way that they have taken over the entire European continent once before, it just seems that with the advances through society, and unfortunately with the secular world just opening up the floodgates and saying, yeah, come over, it's cool, well, we got you. And yeah, it obviously they're getting help to spread this worldwide. So it just seems like that the current events that are going on is going to play out, that the Muslims are going to continue to flood in over here. That's already happening in certain pockets throughout the continental United States. And then Obama's obviously trying to invite more of them, and then that Supreme Court justice died, which there were some very interesting suspicious aspects with that when he died, and then Obama not even going to the funeral, and then trying to appoint a justice right away who is affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood and is some sort of attorney general or something for some Muslim activist organization. So I just found that very interesting. And then too, like the Pope, I mean, not like I've given any validity to the Vatican or the Catholic Church at all, but I just find it interesting, like all things, like obviously the Pope represents the original Latin Church, the Old Testament God, in a sense, even though we had that Reformation back in like the 1500s or something. So the fact that he is the establishment and he's just suddenly, I mean, I know this Pope has been kind of weird anyway, but he just suddenly goes, yeah, let's listen to the Muslims. The Muslims are right. I was like, Allah is actually our God. My bad. We've been reading it wrong. And I still think it's interesting too, because the Pope right before him didn't actually finish his, I guess, reign over the Vatican and die. He actually resigned, and that's the first Pope that's ever resigned. So I found that interesting too. So that was obviously just a couple years ago. And it's obviously been at least quite a few years for the Muslims to start trickling into Europe and do this huge mass migration. So I just think that it's all interrelated. Like and I'm not trying to insinuate any kind of Illuminati thing, but there's just too many like weird trifling shit going on that just seems to coincidentally be flowing and helping each other out to get their agenda done. And it's just weird because it's certain institutions that never had any prior connections that would never assimilate or associate with each other at all. So it's just weird. But so I'll go ahead and go into this, and yes, this is an interpretation chart, so it'll sound like it's for a specific individual, but just think of the country as an individual, so the country as a whole. So when it talks about the person, it's talking about essentially the principles and the established government, the way that the freedoms that we get, our constitution, that sort of thing. When it talks about relations with people or any kind of just conflicts or anything, then associate the government to the actual American people, that sort of thing. And it's not too complicated. You'll get the gist of it. Just keep those in mind as I read this. So we've got transiting Saturn conjunct Radix Chiron in the 4th house. This will be on January 1st, 2017. And it'll leave in September 28th, 2017. That's my birthday, that's weird. So it says, it's time to heal emotional wounds by digging deep into past memories and reevaluating them in a new light. A current event may be in the impetus Behind this need for healing, perhaps a physical illness is causing problems, or perhaps someone's actions are inadvertently causing pain, or it could be simply a painful event or news. It is also possible that the current problems are connected with authority figures, so authority figures would be like the government institutions, such as employers or parents. It is not until we have looked at past events or emotional patterns that you will gain insight into the present day situation. Your childhood in particular may hold the key to understanding. So when it says your childhood, we're talking about like the actual beginning of the United States as a whole. So back in the American Revolutionary time, which Pluto goes through all of the signs and would make a Pluto return essentially in somebody's chart or a country's chart. 249 years. That's how long it would take. And we are going to be hitting, I think it's this year or next year, which would make complete sense. So we would be essentially having all the planetary energy lining up for another American Revolution. So that could play into what Baba Vanga was saying, that the first African American president will be the last of the United States as we know it. And then we move on to transiting Neptune conjunct radix Mars in the 7th house. The orb would go from the 1st of January 2017, and it'll be exact on the 10th of January, and then it'll be leaving the 10th of February. So it says this can be a time when you suffer from a debilitating sense of lethargy. Goals and ambitions which seem important in the past can lose their attraction, leaving you lacking in motivation. You may feel tired. Let me scroll down. You may feel tired and unwell. It is not a good time to take on any extra responsibilities or be making business decisions. Rather, it would be better to relax and rest. Remember that you are feeling particularly pessimistic during this time, but it won't last. Creativity and spiritual activities may be soothing. So, this is essentially when we're supposed to have our next president. And there's all kinds of conspiracy theories or paranoid people, and I wouldn't even say they're just paranoid people. Some people may have been having some Neptunian insight through dreams, and maybe because they either are neurotic, they might be a little bit on the paranoid side already, so people aren't really going to be taking their narrative seriously. But there actually might be some people out there that have been having some themes that they're starting to see, and they really feel strongly about it. Those would be intuitive flashes telling them about what's happening. Since Neptune is in Pisces right now, that amplifies Neptune's effects with its connection to the spiritual divine, and a deep connection with the collectives as a whole, so everybody on Earth. Then we move on to transiting Neptune. Oh no, I already did that one. Transiting Chiron conjunct. Whoa. Yeah, transiting Chiron conjunct radix Jupiter in the 7th house. So this will be orbiting the 1st of January and be leaving the 2nd of January. And this is 2017. So it says you are currently able to catch glimpses of your true spiritual potential, and perhaps to express this potential in your life through the worlds of study, travel, teaching, religion, or publishing. Firstly, you have to heal old wounds and misunderstandings which have prevented you realizing your goals. It is time to forgive and forget and move on with your life. This really is a time to climb mountains and follow dreams while maintaining your integrity and compassion. And then the next one is transiting North Node conjunct radix to the ascendant in the 1st house. So it enters in on the 31st of January 2017. It's exact on the 18th of February, and then it's done on the 9th of March 2017. So this will emphasize on community cooperation, natural and comfortable relations with others, gatherings and groupings, and positive experiences. So just by what I gather here, not even insinuating like exactly what is going to transpire between when the election is supposed to be underway in November to the end of January and into February. But regardless, if everything goes on ahead of schedule and there's just a lot of the Muslims now over here or whatever, there's going to be a collective narrative and a uniting of the people and the communities. So that'll be amazing, especially since we obviously are having some great animosity. So I would assume that the previous aspect that I mentioned, which is the Chiron conjunction radix Jupiter, is going to shed some light to a lot of the demographics that have been basically pinned against each other, and now they're trying to fight each other off and everything. Well, the government's trying to get away with all kinds of crap. Anyway, so then it says transiting Jupiter stationary into the second house. So the second house is associated with economy, money, establishment, and just building your physical material foundation, because it's the Taurus house. Okay, so that's good that that'll be in the second house for the United States, because that would mean that we're creating some sort of stability with our economic growth or our resources. And then let's see. The eclipse of the transiting moon will be on the 10th of February 2017, and that'll be in the 12th house. So that might actually be shedding some light on the secrets and conspiracies that have been going on that have been unraveling this country. Because the 12th house has to do with conspiracy, secrets, incarceration, jail, that sort of thing. Self-undoing. Let's see. Transiting North Node entering to the 12th house, and then it would go into the first house. So that'll be on the 18th of February 2017. It says, this is a great quest to see yourself as part of a greater whole. You need to learn mind over matter to transform your self-preoccupation into spiritual unity. So this is that globalization that I was talking about in one of my previous videos. Like a few months ago, I talked about Neptune and Pisces and the similar transits that were going on the last time a lot of the generational planets were in the exact placements they are now. Let's see. Then on the 26th of February 2017, we have another eclipse that will be transiting over into the 7th house. So we essentially had the moon transiting into the 12th house. And like I said, that has to do with the collective, the self-undoing, the greater good, etc., and also the secrets and everything. And it's the psychic spiritual house. So that could be like an enlightenment thing as well. And then with the eclipse happening in the 7th house, the 7th house has to do with others, the people, law, and relations and business and relations with foreign relations. So that would be the emphasis on that eclipse, and that's towards the end of February 2017. So it looks like at the very beginning of January 2017, we're going to be very pessimistic, exhausted, and just completely discouraged. And then by the end of that month, we're going to start to pick up our feet, gather together, do what we got to do. And then we're going to have a eclipse by the end of February that'll be in the 7th house, which could essentially establish law all over again, because 7th house is associated with Libra. So Libra is exalted in Saturn, and that's actually the Saturn placement that was in the original Declaration of Independence chart, the chart of the United States as it was created. So that's also what gives us our freedom. So that might actually be some sort of spiritual renewal in a sense for the country, and we may not necessarily be the same country that we were before, but we're still going to, I would say we're going to still be here. We're not going to succumb to the fate that Europe is going to, unfortunately, because I only say that because of different things that Nostradamus said in some of his quatrains that just make sense. And that Baba Vanga lady also said that entire Europe will pretty much be barren and annihilated. And that I think it was like in the 2040s that the American Christians are going to take back the Vatican. So meaning that when she says take back the Vatican, obviously the Vatican's not going to be with the Christians or the Catholics anymore. And pretty much anybody could guess that at this point. The Pope is pretty much sucking Allah's dick at this point. So he's even meeting with the Muslim Brotherhood imams or something, and I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, just fucking take your hat off now, or whatever. But, then look at, so then we look at, for the 18th of February, 2017, transiting North Node entering the 12th house from the first house. So it says, this is a quest to see the self as part of a greater whole. You need to learn mind over matter and transform your self-preoccupation into spiritual unity. I thought I did that one already. Maybe it's happening again. So, the way I would translate that from it being the United States chart is instead of the 1% or specific elite people trying to basically just push down and suppress the collective or all of the people, that they'll realize that they actually do need them. And that's been my argument too with Trump running for the Republican presidential nominee. I looked at his chart, and just because of how blunt and honest he is, and how determined he is to be successful, because he has Jupiter conjunct Neptune in his second house, and he has a Leo rising, and then he also has a stellium of Cancer, I think, in his 11th house, and he has some positive aspects with that, and I believe he has a couple of significant planets in his 4th house of home, which emphasizes on the real estate and everything. So the fact that he has Cancer influencing over his 11th house, which is for the community, he actually does have this compassion for the United States. And even if it's more of in a selfish way, that he loves his family, obviously, he loves his business, he takes pride in what he's done, he's worked his ass off to get it. And obviously people try to, peg him for bankruptcies or whatever, but have you looked at the national debt lately? Have you seen everybody that probably has credit card debt up the wazoo, student loan debt? I mean, seriously, you're pointing fingers at somebody for filing for bankruptcy. He's still got money, so I mean, but basically what I'm getting at is that he's understanding that he doesn't really have anywhere else to go. Also, Europe is going to be completely annihilated. He would have to reestablish himself somewhere else, and then he would have to reestablish his brand, and he likely would lose tons of money because just to get back up and going somewhere else, and that would only determine if he actually did get to establish himself somewhere else. Or he could just step in now and do what has to be done and save what remnants are left to the United States, because even if he's one of the top 1%, he needs that foundation that is the people and the collective to keep his empire strong and to keep his life the way it is. And he does provide goods and services, and if he doesn't have anybody to serve or anybody watching his shows or buying his real estate, then he essentially will not be successful and will not have his businesses anymore anyway. So even if you look at it from a kind of selfish perspective, he's doing this for his family and he's doing this for himself, and his chart definitely reflects that. And then partly, he is very blunt and honest. I love when people are like that. It just makes life a lot easier. And when you're the only honest, straightforward person, even when you're an asshole, and I'm definitely projecting because that's how I resonate with Trump, is that everybody damns you and condemns you and says you're horrible and you're lying or whatever. And when you know for a fact that the same people that are accusing you, not just from a projection assumption, but for a fact that they have dirty hands, and they're accusing you of things like that, it makes you fucking mad. So it's almost like with that whole competitive nature of his, wanting to excel, having Jupiter and Neptune in his second house right there like that, and just his rising, and then he's also got Uranus on his midheaven. Okay, so I have an emphasis on Uranus too that's actually on my descendant. But he's got his midheaven, so he wants to rebel against everything. And if all the other politicians are completely trying to unravel the country and lie to everyone and destroy everything, then he would just willingly, throw the towel in on his real estate or his other businesses or his, reality TV show and just aspire to something else because he has that Leo ascendant kind of confidence that he can do anything. And the fact that he does have Uranus on the 10th house, yes, there might be some struggles along the way, but he will somehow, some way figure it out. And I would expect that even if for some crazy reason he doesn't get the presidency or the election doesn't happen, Trump running for president, this will not be the last of his efforts to secure this country and to essentially make it great again, as he says, and or just fucking save it. And yeah, I'm just gonna keep going. So let's see. Oh yeah, that's the whole self. Stop being preoccupied with the self and realize about the collective whole. So that's the 1%. Trump essentially was the example. Understanding that he needs to take into account the collective whole. Since he has Uranus on his midheaven, just like I have an Aquarius MC, I tend to pick up on things or start to feel like the effects of certain ingressing transits before the majority does. So he would likely feel motivated to see it, to go on a quest to see the self as part of the greater whole before the entire country gets on board, aka all the elite people that are trying to screw everything over. And I also think the Senate is actually starting to do that too. I mean, I know that they're always going at ends with the Democrats, but I'm so relieved that Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader for the Republican Party, said that he's going to wait and let the new president appoint the Supreme Court Justice. But anyway, so keep going on. Let's see. Then we have an eclipse of the transiting sun on the 26th, 2017, the 7th house again. And then transiting Chiron conjunction radix sun in the 7th house. So this starts on the 8th of March in 2017. It's exact on the 25th. And then it's leaving on the 11th of April. But then it goes back into this transit in September 24th. Then it's exact on the 17th of October. And then it's leaving on the 29th of November. And it enters back in one more time on the 10th of December. So obviously there's a little bit of a manic suppressive kind of thing going on with this transit. So it says the sun is your sense of identity. It represents the way you see yourself in the outside world. When Chiron passes over the sun, nothing stays the same. So the sun essentially in the chart for the United States would represent the country and the government as a whole. So when it says, when Chiron passes over the sun, nothing stays the same, that would follow in line with what Baba Vanga was saying about how the first African-American president will be the last president of the United States as they know it. So, because she didn't emphasize anything on that the entire country is going to unravel. She also did go into detail about how all of Europe will be completely wiped out. And she didn't say anything about the United States. And the fact that a couple quatrains down, or not quatrains, a couple predictions down, because she has a timeline, she says how the American Christians are going to take back the Vatican. The fact that she says American Christians, I don't know if that's the exact words, but it's essentially that. It translates to that. Would mean that we still continue to live on, despite the fact that Obama was technically the last president. I'm not even going to go into what I theorize, because it'll probably change, and yeah. and I'm getting distracted and it's already getting long. So let's see, this transit changes the way you see and express yourself. You may discover hidden skills you never knew you possessed. A chance encounter could spark a whole new field of learning, ultimately providing a great source of healing. You have a chance to heal wounds, physical and or emotional, and realign your identity with your true purpose. So, going back to our founding fathers' ideology and our Constitution. Because there's been a lot of corruption going on for a long time. Our founding fathers even warned us of that. That's why we had certain parameters put in place and certain loopholes for us to be able to rise up against it again at some point, because they knew this was going to happen. Benjamin Franklin was an astrologer, by the way. Wrote the first Farmer's Almanac. Pretty funny. Interesting. Let's see. In some cases, you may suffer a physical illness. It is important, therefore, that you slow down and rest and consider your direction in life. Then we have transiting Saturn stationary in the 4th house. So Saturn would be the identity and creating discipline and an establishment. 4th house would be the home country. So that might be translating to that would translate to either stabilizing the home country and or solidifying the core values that we're going to try to go back to. And then transiting Pluto stationary in the 5th house. So Pluto's obviously supposed to be about transformation. And the 5th house is romance, children, hobbies, creativity, that sort of thing. And then we have transiting North Node entering Leo in the 12th house. So we have transiting Neptune stationary in the 7th house, transiting Chiron stationary in the 8th house. Chiron. And that'll be the 5th of December 2017. And then we have transiting Uranus stationary in the 9th house. And then 9th house has to do with religion too. And foreign affairs. And Uranus usually is associated with trauma. So we would likely be having some sort of... obviously we're still in this war, but we're obviously going to get way more involved than we are now. And we're actually not that involved. Obama's been pretending for a while. And that is August 3rd, 2017. And then there's an eclipse on August 7th, 2017. And it's transiting Moon into the 6th house. So that's going to be health, work, and service. And so we will be essentially assessing what our work and service would be, what we should be dedicating what the country should be dedicating itself to its people and to its principles. And then we have an eclipse of the transiting Sun in the 12th house. The 12th house would obviously be endings and new beginnings as well, and then the assimilation to the collective. And then transiting Chiron entering the 7th house from the 8th house on the 4th of September 2017. It says, you suffer from broken and painful relationships and feelings of rejection by your partner. You may later have a partner who teaches you to overcome this, or you may teach your partner. And then transiting Jupiter enters the 3rd house on the 21st of September 2017. During this period, you are likely to be seeking ways to expand your mind and to reach out to other people. Communications of all types appeal ranging from talking on the telephone to studying short courses. It is also possible that you benefit from travel, in particular short trips. And then transiting Jupiter conjunction Radix Moon 3rd house. Entering on the 25th of September 2017, it'll be exact on the 29th of September, and then it'll be done on the 4th of October 2017. So it says, this is a feel-good transit. In other words, you'll feel good about yourself, your life, and your loved ones. As a result, you are particularly warm and loving. Your contentment is contagious, and others want to spend time with you. You know how to have a good time and indulge yourself during this transit. then transiting Jupiter entering Scorpio in the 3rd house. And this will be the 10th of October 2017. It says you are an intense search for the truth. You have strong desires for sexual union and joint enterprises. You could be a transformative teacher. I think, I'm not totally sure. I'd have to look at the aspects involved, but when Saturn was in when Saturn was in Scorpio, that's when there was a lot of secrets coming out with the government's conspiracies and different bullshit that they've been doing. So when Jupiter, which is this expansive, over-exaggerative, overzealous kind of energy, goes into Scorpio, it's the Scorpio detective, probing, prying, getting into things, figuring things out, tampering with things, secrets that people are trying to hide, and just going manic on everything. So there's going to be a lot of shit that ends up being cleared out, and it will become common knowledge with everyone. So that'll be a pretty epic year, I'm pretty sure. And that'll be late 2017, and then all the way into 2018, about probably like the second week of October. And then it says, transiting Uranus entering the 8th house from the 9th house. And it says, you may experience sudden changes in your life through joint ventures, particularly joint finances. You also may be fascinated with metaphysics and deeper side of life. So, if everything starts to play out exactly as Baba Vanga has said it, more Nostradamus quatrains are validated, and there's more of a step in a certain direction with metaphysics or holy sciences or the occult sciences, or, you know, some sort of merging of the two, which, like Santos Bonacci with the astrotheology, he's trying to incorporate that, but people just, you know, aren't biting with that too much yet. We will probably continue to progress into that. Supposedly there's some sort of article I read it, and who knows if it's, you know, accurate, because that cognitive dissonance with Neptune, Pisces, and Jupiter, Virgo. But it said that half of all millennials think that astrology is a science. And I don't really want to use millennials as a positive example, because they're pretty, social justice warriors. That's all I gotta say. They're millennials too. So, it makes me happy that people are, you know, understanding that astrology has some validity and usefulness, but I also feel kind of like it's a low blow that social justice warriors are the ones that are saying, oh yeah, it's totally true. I'm like, nobody wants to listen to your crap. I'm done. Sorry. Oops. So then we have transiting Uranus entering the 8th house. Oh yeah, I already read that one. It says transiting Saturn entering Capricorn, the 4th house. So Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and Capricorn is stability, and it's also to do with reputation. So we would be reestablishing our reputation at home. I wouldn't say for foreign country relations, but the United States as a whole will be reestablishing its integrity and its reputation and going back to its constitutional foundations. And then the details for that is the 19th of December 2017. You are conservative, authoritarian, and have strong worldly ambitions. You are a responsible worker. So we're going to embody the Founding Fathers' values yet again. About time. So that obviously doesn't give any clues on to if we're going to be invaded by Muslims, if we're going to go into martial law or anything like that. I'm not really going to know anything like that until I look at like the daily aspects and look at it and compare the aspect lineups to other events and see if I can get a good idea. All I gotta say is prepping is not a bad idea. Be prepared. Try to be self-sufficient. Sustain yourself however you can. Watch your back and hold out.